Video games are getting worse. Maybe. We've been in a very strange time in our video gaming lives where releasing half-finished video games is now just the norm, and some games feel more like brain rot than actual games. Hyping up a game via trailers and it being published by a big-name developer will get you tons of sales, but then it will just run like garbage. This doesn't mean that the game concepts aren't good though. I'll be honest, when Anthem was getting trailers, I thought it was going to be the new Destiny killer. It was going to be a hot open world game, it looked amazing. But when it actually came out, all expectations weren't met. We have also come into a time where making iPhone games for consoles and computers has just become the norm. Look at Batman Arkham Knights, where that game's inventory is so convoluted and relies heavily on rarities, building different items, mechanics you find in a survival game or crappy iPhone game put into a Batman game. Normal games that don't need leveling systems or skill trees have them in it because it appeals to our puny little goblin brains, where getting a 2% stamina increase and filling in a bubble of a huge skill tree appeals to us. It's baffling that technology has increased, companies bigger than they have ever been. The video game market is booming after COVID with trillions of dollars into it. So why is a game like GTA 5 that came out 10 years ago looking and feeling better than some games now? We're going to get to the bottom of that today, analyzing different games that have come out in the past and present and see why they're successful at what they're trying to achieve. I do want to preface something really quick before we get into the actual games, and that's graphics. I won't be touching bad graphics too much in this video because it's frankly purposeless. Bad graphics are due to poor time management and where they're putting their resources. I won't talk about the Pokemon trees or whatever because it just really isn't what I'm trying to focus on. I do recognize that graphics can be argued to have gotten overall worse, but we're also in a time where with enough work, we can make games so realistic that the creator has to prove it's not a recording. Graphics are a result of the company, not the shift in the gaming market dynamic. Now, let's get back to the video games. Let's talk about one of the most beloved games of all time, Minecraft. Minecraft gets very little updates, and when it is updated, they often add a lot of useless things into it, like lightning rods, but nothing ever feels out of place. They don't try to go out of their scope, they don't add magic, roaming girlfriends, random girlfriend NPCs. Why don't they though? I mean, everyone likes these things in mods. Why is there such a distinctive barrier between vanilla and modded? This is because it's not trying to be anything more than it is. It has a very specific purpose and it's in its title. To make a fun mining system and a fun crafting/building system. That's it. Its main focus isn't the fighting. It's not going to put in 10 different bosses in or make the game too complicated by putting in tons of different locations and dimensions or add in an intricate magic system, because that's not its main focus. It has its few concepts and makes sure to nail them to perfection. That's why those 1 week Minecraft grinds are so satisfying, because it's simple, and what it seeks out to achieve, it does with perfection. It leaves all the fantastical and automative crap to the mods because that muddies up things. It isn't its original vision. Although it feels great to upgrade your Tinker's shovel 1,000 times, Minecraft just gives you netherite so you never have to grind again, so you can build whatever you want without worry. This is the main thing I want to hit, allocating where your resources are in a game. Let's take Skyrim for example, a beautiful game with tons of promise. It is a very innovative game and was a breakthrough when it came to the industry, but it's very lackluster. Quests and storylines are all over the place, a large level up system, hidden quests, weird dialogue, hidden lore in books, a somewhat empty open world, combat not being very interesting, but the upgrading feels very linear and not impressive. It tried to be a master of everything, but then became a master of none. Unlike Minecraft, the mods just make the game strictly better by overhauling the many concepts it tried to tackle, such as the open world, combat, magic, because there are so many concepts, mods just fit right in. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy Skyrim. It's a great game, but it was stretched very, very thin. And because of it, there's a lot of promise and potential that just wasn't met. And I think that's what we're seeing in video games today, where every game is trying to be everything at once, instead of perfecting down one or two different concepts. Now, this isn't me saying that games have to focus on one element, because I strongly disagree. One of my favorite games of all time is Hollow Knight, which is a Souls-like platformer with beautiful art and environments, and is very ambitious in its goals. They focus a lot on making a living, breathing environment, working on the graphics, art, sound effects, and music to make sure the player can get lost and invested, having some of the most endgame content I've ever seen in a single game. The combat is simple. You fight in cardinal directions, get your standard double jump and dash, and a little bit of magic. Pretty standard for what video games are right now and in the past. Because it is so simple though, they can make sure it's fluid, exciting, elegant, amazing boss designs making sure each fight is unique and interesting, investing themselves into the lore, the character designs, making sure it's fair and fun. It could be said that the combat has little variability, and you'd be right. But it's because of that little variability, it's able to control its variables to make sure the encounter is properly balanced and feels great to the player. It feels complete, fluid. There are no hitches or awkwardness, no useless side quests, no useless items, there's no skill tree, XP, nothing, because it doesn't fit. It's not trying to force things into it. Now, let's look on the opposite side of that coin. In another beloved game, Elden Ring. Before you get into my comments saying how dare he speak garbage about Elden Ring, Elden Ring on release date was one of my favorite gaming experiences of all time. My best friend and I played it together at the same time, finding new items, telling each other what we found, telling each other our experiences. It was great, and it reminded me why we were friends. The Elden Ring has some big glaring flaws. It is a huge world with bosses in awkward places, random trap chests everywhere, bosses being repeated, weapons that are useless to you over and over and over, highly missable areas, broken balance to the point where you either get steamrolled or are steamrolling, and a lackluster ending boss in an endgame that just feels awkward and weird. Elden Ring shines in its flavor. The world is beautiful, the weapons look amazing, the boss designs are some of my favorites. They look strong, valiant, but yet opposing. Unfortunately, it was stuck in the open world elements too hard, so that the balancing was terrible, where on my first playthrough I swept through every boss and lost the experience I could have had. It kinda pushed you into looking up, where the first two medallion pieces were to get into the next area. A game designed around going into either a certain build like strength or faith or dex and magic, so half or more of the items you pick up are completely useless to you. So some concepts and mechanics just feel unfinished, where the player feels inclined, farming giants, just to be able to use their new cool weapon, but then because of that sweeps through the bosses. That's because of trends, especially the open world trend. Elden Ring hopped on the peak of the open world hype. But should it have? I mean, Elden Ring is a Souls-like game, which genre kind of thrives off of the more linear storyline, being able to control the difficulty through that rigidness. But combining the two genres together kind of makes it muddied. But players like open world, so they should have it, you know? That mindset is currently plaguing video games, where video game developers are trying to answer every whim of the player, without thinking if it will actually benefit the game. I would love to see the world of Elden Ring in a more standard Souls-like game, where it feels more controlled, where balancing really feels like a fight, where these big momentous moments won't just go to waste. Yet, the open world brings serotonin in our brain, even if it is a worse game overall. The idea of small serotonin boosts makes something a better game has started to plague everything. This can be seen with stats, getting slight more materials, making your character look cooler. All these things that just give us that little boost is now the new thing in video games. I played a game called Destiny 2, where the entire point of the game is to increase tiny stats, with tiny increases to your weapons, opening loot boxes to hope you get a gun you actually want. The game is all about grinding, wasting your time to get tiny bonuses, but the lore and the design of this dude is great! And it's a fun multiplayer game, but just is drowned out by being brain rot. It has gotten to a point where every game needs some sort of grinding or useless side quests that lead nowhere to pad out the game. You want to actually have cool side quests? Check out Cyberpunk, where they aren't meant for game filler, but to be a nice break from the main story and see interesting NPCs. Even Cyberpunk still has a skill tree system though. But why does it? I mean, it could easily use the commerce system to buy upgrades, to unlock new doors and have new hacks and stuff. It's already there, why wouldn't they just integrate it more? Because we have that video game mindset. And those video game mechanics take us out of this super immersive world. One of the most popular games right now is Genshin Impact. Or maybe Honkai Star Rail, I don't really know, but it has the same point. It's a gacha system where you can upgrade each character with different equipment, and they each have their own unique skill tree that has tons of upgrades. Why is it there? I mean, it's there because you pay more money, you do more useless quests, you spend thousands of hours just to get the character you want because that's all that matters to the company. I'll be honest, I used to be in the mindset of if a game is longer, that means it's better, but that's not true at all. I understand that some games are meant for brain rot, but that goes along for every type of media. But at this point, games that are trying to come off as meaningful and artistic are pressured into this toxic mindset of padding out their game and making it more appealing to this brain rot mindset. I really don't want to come off as a hater because these games are really beautiful and are filled with promise. It's just because they're trying to do too much to get people's money and attention. It's rough, unfinished, like a song with too many parts, just gets too hard to focus on one single thing at a time. I just really want to see that promise, and we have. Some ideas in Elden Ring were so beautiful and I felt really amazing, but then it took me right back out again. A game like Celeste, though, really gives me hope. It makes sure it focuses on the small things, makes the collectibles actually feel worth it. Having music that evolves with you as you go through the stage, a simple yet hard-hitting story, where the only ability for the main character is to dash. Yet it introduces obstacles and mechanics that aren't just forgotten about, but are expanded upon and introduced in new ways, which makes it so there's only like 5 mechanics in the entire game. You look at Mario Galaxy, which isn't trying to be anything special, but makes sure it takes care in every single world-making aspect. Mario's movement feels wonderful in space. The colors, the plants, the different environments, all feeling different but cohesive in this larger world, with the boss battles and puzzles being the bow wrapping it together to be a beautiful game. Borderlands 2, which just focuses on gunplay and story. That's it, and is one of the most enjoyable and replayable games of all time, while also having one of the best antagonists. It's not good in anything else, but because it's good at those things and focuses on them, it makes it to be an amazing game. These are the games that will be remembered. These are the amazing games that took an idea, took their craft, and perfected it, made sure everything they envisioned and more. It's just an art that's slowly being forgotten. Game developers just need to smaller their focus. That is why indie games have been in the limelight. Games like Hades 2 or Hollow Knight Silksong are some of the most hyped games coming out. That's because they're from indie studios. They can't afford to try and put everything in their game because they just don't have the resources to. Big companies are trying to churn out a game every year, trying to cram as much as they can into them to get as many sales as they can, and are slowly caring less and less about the quality of their game. We are seeing very ambitious projects just fall flat, like Overwatch 2 and the Pokemon games. The stress of the video game industry is putting it under pressure, and because of it, they're just falling flat. Overall, games lately have just been trying to do too much. They're either trying to appeal to everyone or just cash grabs. Games are no longer about redefining a genre, trying to encompass the developer's vision, being the best it could possibly be. Instead, games are just coming out with barely zero playtesting at all. That's why those indie games are so successful from before, because they can't do everything. They have a passion project and just try to nail it as much as they can, because if they don't have the luxury of, oh, if it fails, we'll get tons of sales anyway. And not the other games who half-ass 1,000 different concepts. These new games have promise, amazing concepts, ideas, worlds, but because of the scope of the game, they fall flat, an unfinished symphony. With the last year or two, more and more unfinished games are coming out, and soon I really think indie games are just going to take over, and hopefully then big companies will realize that a perfected game that appeals only to a select audience will be a lot more successful than an amalgamation of 20 different genres trying to appeal to everyone.
Hi, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and if you have anything to say, please do in the comments. Thank you, bye!